again. Thank you for joining us for another week of Press Row. We've got the usual cast of characters: Todd Walker, Aaron Matthews, Mark Kunz. I'm Matt Finkel. It's week 10 of the high school football season. A lot on the line: playoff positions, league titles. I think the best game of the weekend, at least heading in, looks like Delphus Jefferson-Spencerville, which will decide the Northwest Conference. Do you think this game's going to be close, or will it be a blowout?
I was in Spencerville's locker room last year at Jefferson when they got beat 21-0. And I remember the look that I saw on assistant coaches. I remember the look that I saw on players, kids that are going to be playing in this game. This has been in the back of their minds for 360 some odd days now. This game is going to be a war on Friday night, and I wish I could be there.
I think the interesting thing about this matchup is if you look through this season, neither one of these teams have really been tested. Now, if this was week 4 or 5, I think that'd be an issue. Week 10, these teams haven't been tested because they are that good. No close victories, really. The closest victory for Jefferson was, 19-7 over Allen East. Obviously, they lost to Coldwater, but Spencerville's blown everybody out. Outside of those two games, Jefferson's blown everybody out. So these are two really good teams, and I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a close game. I think this is going to be a really entertaining game to watch as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, too. I really do, and I think it'll be close. And this is a real good rivalry. This is not one that has to get stoked up even if one team is bad. And that was really the trend over the last 10 or 15 years. The team that had the most to lose usually would lose. This year, they're both going to be in the playoffs, I would think, but still, the league title and the pride. And for Spencerville, it's been 50-plus years since anybody's run the table in Spencerville football. They're trying to make history. So it should be a fun one at Spencerville, but I do believe it'll be a close game.
That's right. 1963 was the last time they were 9-0, and then they completed the perfect regular season in that year. So history on the line. It's interesting that you said that you think it's going to be high scoring, because I was focused on the defenses of both of these teams, and I think that, not that they're underrated, but I think what I've seen out of Spencerville, they basically won a game against Grove with an interception late in the first half, and they're pretty good defensively, and I think that we know that both teams are going to run, so defense is going to be a big part.
Interesting you bring up the defense in these two teams. Both these two head coaches call the defense, and they're both extremely close. They're very good friends. And they pull for each other 9 weeks out of the year. For 48 minutes, they're going to hate each other's guts, and they're going to make each other's lives living hell on both sides of the football. That's the plan. This game could be the second best game of the year that we see in our area. Nothing stopping Marion Local Coldwater to me.
It's a very interesting dynamic that we now have with Spencerville and Jefferson in football, and you look at LCC Lima Senior, both football and basketball, where you have two fan bases which really don't necessarily like each other, but they've got coaches in both of those positions that really respect and like each other. So as much as the fan bases want to tear each other apart, the coaches and therefore the teams have a lot of respect for those big rival opponents as well. Yeah,
and I think, going back to your point about defense, I think in this game, in small school football, most of the good players play both ways. And I think what you're going to see is those abilities offensively eventually are going to win out. I think the winner's got to get to 30 points in this. I think the defenses both are good, but as the game goes on and these teams continue to pound on each other, that running game takes its toll. They both like to do that, and they've got big playability. It's not just 4 yards in a cloud of dust. They have big playmakers on both sides. So I think somebody's got to get in the 30s to win this game.
Yeah, that's a good point. They do have a lot of big plays this season, and Mason Nurse, when he throws, he only throws touchdowns. He threw 2 more passes last week, and they both went for touchdowns. So I'm sure that's something that Coach Summers will be preparing for. How about in the WBL? Ilata takes on Bath this week, and both are still alive for the postseason. Will the winner of this game get in?
No. They both have got a very slight chance to get in. Either one, whichever loses, that chance is out. Even if they win, though, it's going to be a very slight chance. So even though they have that chance to play in Week 11, I don't think whoever's going to win this game will get into the postseason. But I think this is going to be another really good matchup. It's going to be an entertaining game. The way these two teams have played the last couple of weeks, Elida's got a lot of momentum with the way they came from behind to beat Otto Glandorf last week.
Yeah, I think you look at the probabilities of getting in. Elida is really, really slim. If they win, they have to have every conceivable break. Bath's chances are better, but still not what you'd call good. Probably 50-50 is being a little generous. But it's nice that the hope is there. You know, the teams, the coaches, the kids, the fans, they don't have to look at the probability. They just got to look at hope. That's a big motivator, as is beating your rival.
Well, when you look at how it lays out for both these two teams, looking at the numbers this week, guys, for Elida, in my opinion, they have the better chance because the number 8 team, Cleveland John Hay, plays Glenville. The number 7 team is Bowling Green, coming off of a loss. They play Napoleon, who's 6-3 coming in. Whereas, so those two slip up, and Elida gets some help. That could potentially get them in. Bath, in my opinion, guys, is the surprise team of the year that we're still talking about them having a playoff chance going in to Week 10. Even if they win, they might not get in, and if they do, congratulations, you're probably playing Bishop Hartley, who I got to see firsthand last week. The best team in high school football that I've seen in person since Youngstown Ursuline in the state semifinals against LCC in 2010.
Strong words.
They were good.
Yeah. It's interesting to see. Bath first got on my radar against Wapak when they almost got that game at home. And then since then, and they should have been on my radar before then as well because they were playing good football. And then Elida, winning a bunch in a row, and that big win over OG. So speaking of OG now, OG's coming off a loss. So is St. Mary's. They play each other Week 10. And there's a lot of playoff implications in this matchup. So who needs the win more?
Well, they're in different divisions, different regions, but it's pretty much an elimination game.
Yeah.
Whoever loses this game does not have a chance to get in. Whoever wins, I think OG's a little bit stronger case of getting in if they win. St. Mary's, if they win, it's not as strong of a case. But I think in the totality of everything, I think this win is probably more important for St. Mary's and Ottawa Gallagher for what it will mean for the Rough Rider program to get back into the postseason in year 2 of Doug Fry 2.0.
Yeah, and OG still kind of licking their wounds from not getting in last year when they won 8 games. If they win this game, they'll have 7 wins this year. I think you're right. Whoever loses is definitely out. I think OG wins, they're in. St. Mary's probably will be in if they win too. So it really is an elimination game. And again, good to have this playoff angle on the last week because the league title's out of reach. But an elimination game here, the loser is almost certainly done for the season.
As if St. Mary's needed any more motivation. You get that carrot in front of them that says potential Wapak round 2 in Week 11. That could very conceivably happen if the Rough Riders get in. It'll be interesting to see. I think that game could come down to the final possession of the ball game.
So the Titans, we were talking about them a couple weeks ago. They were the top seed in their region, how quickly things can change, and just goes to show, like we said, if they take care of business, but we included a win over Elida in that, and Elida beating OG has really changed their fortunes a bit.
Well, that's why I get so aggravated when people talk about the point standings after Week 7.
Yes. Well, that's our job on Press Row. So,
you look at them, but you can't take any solace from the fact we're number 2 through 7 weeks because so many points are yet to be determined. Elida goes on a run, changes the whole dynamic. And, it's like the Bath-Elida game. They've beaten other teams. Bath lost to OG. Elida beat OG. Now, Bath beat St. Mary's. Elida lost to St. Mary's.
Yep.
So those 2 games could determine the whole future for Bath and or Elida, how they go. So things really have to play out in the last 2 weeks. You can really start to see some definition. And obviously this week, with 1 to go, you can do a lot of math this week.
You don't clinch playoff spots in Week 7.
That's correct.
Yes. And the one thing I do think we did get right is the WBO seems up this year, and it's very competitive with those 5, 6, 7 teams there. And that speaks to these teams still having a chance to get in. Plus, we know Wapak is a lock at this point to host a playoff game. All right, college football now. Ohio State on the bye, but some news today. Another head coach stepping down, not in the best of circumstances, of course. Mid-season, there's been, 8 head coaching changes already? What gives?
Well, it speaks to the pressure. There's been guys that have been fired, which, it used to be very rare in college football to have somebody fired in mid-season other than actual malfeasance. But, you've seen it a couple of times already this year. And, the Jerry Kill's health, the issue today, that's a whole separate thing. But, programs now want to get the jump on looking for that next head coach.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's better to fire a guy mid-season because you get that jump. So we'll see how it works out for people that did it. I think USC really didn't have a choice. They had to do what they had to do with Sarkisian, but other schools did have a choice and decided to pull the trigger, if you will, early, and we'll see if it pays off.
I think it's also a testament to the importance of recruiting. The idea is if you're going to make a change, make that change quickly so you can get your new guy in place quickly so you can start recruiting, because that's the lifeblood of college football. It no longer really matters how good you are at the X's and O's. It comes down to the Jimmy and Joes and how good you are at getting the best Jimmy and Joes into your program. So as soon as you can make that change and get your new guy in there, get your stability at the front of your program, the more time he has to kind of lock up the guys that have already committed to your program, more time he has to get out there and start bringing in new guys to your program. So, yeah, I think it comes down to the pressure of coaching and also making sure you got stability for the recruiting of your next group of players.
When you look at just this week, already 3 this week since Sunday, when George O'Leary retired, Al Golden got the thanks for playing from the U, and then Jerry Kill today. 3 totally separate circumstances with all 3. Jerry Kill, I remember 2 years ago, and we were talking about this before we went on the air, guys, we were talking about Jerry Kill, would he hang it up after the 2013 season because of his health? And obviously it's got to the point where he can't do it anymore. You know, God bless him, and you hope that everything, you know, because this far supersedes football right now. But you look at Miami, and, you know, you had Leon Searcy and Warren Sapp and Ed Reed and all these guys, you know, jabberboxing during the game on Saturday when they got whitewashed by Clemson 58-0. The most energy on life that the U showed was in a pregame, you know, trash talk session with Clemson. After that, they looked absolutely dormant. I watched part of that game, and Sun Life Stadium had maybe 10,000 people in it when that game ended. And the Fire Al Golden banners, well, guess what? The airplane industry around Miami, the fly banners, is hurting right now, unless they're flying the Fire Spolstra ones after tonight when the Heat make their season debut, because they had it for Al Golden, Joe Philbin. They've had him for the Marlins for baseball already. You know, who knows what's next? Eric Spolstra.
I think the interesting thing about the Miami situation is you're talking about a fan base that I think is clearly living in the past, whether they're living in the past 10 years ago, whether they're living in the past 20 years ago. They are not understanding what the reality of that situation is for Miami football anymore, what the reality of the situation is for Florida recruiting anymore, and whether or not this Miami program, whether the U will ever return. I don't know if the U ever will return.
I don't think it will. You know, the problem with Miami, with their ex-players, is their personalities and their personas are much bigger than the actual U fan base. There really is no fan base. When they're good, people show up. When they're not good, people in Southern Florida don't care. Those players think the U is still a great destination. The fact of the matter is the economics of the game are very tough for the University of Miami to match right now. And the players that used to play there, they don't get those kind of players anymore, at least enough of them. And it's going to be hard. That's a private university.
Yeah, people
they
forget
don't have a huge fan base. I saw it firsthand in 2002, 2003 national championship game with Ohio State. The Ohio State fan base was out of control. I mean, you had to really look to find Canes fans.
Well, and
they're loud, but they're small.
Moving their games from Orange Bowl all the way up to Sun Life Stadium totally took that stadium out of their fan bases where they could get to, and that has crippled them as well.
Yeah, and that's part of it. And you talked about the economics, Todd. They're going to be hard pressed to get a home run coach to come there. Meaning,
they got to get the only way they're going to make a splash is if it's an alum or a guy that coached there before, like Butch Davis.
Right.
Nobody that's a big name coach is going to step down to take the U. And by stepping down, I mean A, in pay, and B, in facilities and all the other things. They've got to get a guy that loves the U and wants to make a big splash. And it may be a guy who really hasn't coached before. They got to go out on a limb here, I think. If they want to bring back the glory, they might have to stoop to that kind of thing. Hire a guy who hasn't even been a coach.
It's not going to be Chip Kelly.
No.
It's probably not going to be Lane Kiffin. It's not going to be Steve Sarkisian. It's not going to be anybody who's sitting on it. It's not going to be a Bill Cowher or anybody like that. It could very easily be somebody who has ties there. Keep this name in mind, Mario Cristobal. He was the coach of Florida International. Yeah. He was, he's got ties still there to the Southern Florida area. And that's the thing for the U. They've got to have somebody who has ties to Southern Florida. Maybe it's Butch Davis 2.0.
Well, he sure has put his name in the hat, hasn't he?
So has Ed Reed.
Yeah, Ed Reed. It's not going to be Ed Reed.
No, it's not.
I'll throw out Rob Chudzinski's name in there,
too. He was mentioned.
Yeah.
Ironically, there was a thing on Bleacher Report Sunday afternoon before the firing was announced 9 possible replacements for Al Golden at the U. Number 3 was Rob Chudzinski.
Yeah, the point I just wanted to make on that was to piggyback off yours. It's private university, only 17,000 students.
Yep.
You would think there's more based on when the times were good, that their fan base was all over the place, but it's really
Miami's hugeness was always much more by their accomplishments on the field than any great fan base or history. There is no history. There is no fan base. That's all they had was they had that great run. It makes us think they're bigger than they are.
All right, that does it for this edition of Press Row. Thank you very much for being with us. Enjoy Week 10.